Happy Tuesday morning, everybody. Welcome into Morning Jocks here. Conrad Van Order, Damian Mitchell with you for another day. And we appreciate you making us a part of your day each and every morning here on Jocks, as we've got more fall camp going on, of course, across the SEC. So you had Auburn on the practice field yesterday. Alabama had their we all thought we were done with media days, right? And maybe I'm mistaken, and somebody can correct me, but I don't remember this being a thing in the past. But now you've got schools that are doing their own media days, which is what you had with Alabama yesterday. So they essentially they took the day off of practice, as Damian we were talking about yesterday, and Damian was like, "Man, I can't even really wrap my head around what that would have been like back in your day when you were playing college ball." But you get, the players had an off day yesterday, but some of them sticking around to talk with the media, just kind of be made available for the first time this fall, that you got to hear from the players directly. And I know they also had, I believe it was about 2 hours of, fan events, things like that, for Yay Alabama members. So if there's anybody listening that was down there, got to be a part of that, we'd love to hear from you and what your experience was. 205-834-9450, because I know they did make that available for some people. But good to get to hear from a couple of the players, and we'll play some of that audio for you here coming up. But you did have Auburn. They were actually on the practice field yesterday getting some work done, and so got some news and notes from what people were able to observe yesterday as well. But of course, we have to start off with your friendly reminder that today is 18 days away from the start of college football. That's going to be week 0, of course, which means we're 25 days away from Auburn and Baylor and 26 days away from Alabama versus Florida State. So it continues to get closer and closer. I know a lot of people, your kids are going back to school this week as well. And so that's really when, I know a lot of people are making the jokes about, we call it fall camp, but it's hot outside. It doesn't really feel like fall. And, the last couple of days, it started to actually feel like fall. And I feel like for a lot of people, once your kids go back to school, that's when it really seems to kind of set things off there. So we are slowly but surely, Damian, we're getting ever so close.
Yeah, and it kind of, once we start the countdown, it kind of hits you a little bit different when you start hearing, like the 30-day mark or the 25-day mark.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in the teens. Now it's, okay, we can start turning the page and start looking forward to what 2025 has to offer, man. And, it's, for me, and I try to explain this to people, it's like the new year starts for me in August. Like, it's kind of like, okay, well, yeah, so what everything that's happened post national championship, post Super Bowl, of course, having a little bit of spring football there, but it's like the new calendar year. I put the mark on in August. I'm like, oh yeah, it's 2025. So anything that happens from this point forward, I feel like, okay, yeah, it's time for the new year. But it's kind of cool too, man. Like you brought up the whole like fan day and media availability. Most of the time, I remember it being towards the end, like the last day of camp, where they'll have either like the final scrimmage and then everybody's available after that. But having it this early and getting a chance to hear from some of the players, and I guess the access that we have now to so much tape and so many highlights, it doesn't, you feel like you're always connected in some way. Where I had this conversation with a couple of my buddies yesterday, and we were talking about like some guys like that just live in folklore in college football. And I think that when we see like the Tavon Austins, we never really heard his voice for a lot of the times. And it was kind of, like Reggie Bush, and like we didn't have the access that we had back in the day. So now when we look at some of these players, it's like, oh yeah, we've seen them from, how many times have we brought up Harold Perkins' name? And like we've seen him for so long that it's, okay, well, yeah, like I expect them to have a pretty good season. I thought it was kind of unique too, just going to the Alabama side of things, is you didn't get a chance to hear from any of the quarterbacks. Like, this is truly a competition. And I think that what Kalen DeBoer is doing a good job of, I'd say, protecting the guys, of just like, hey, we're not showing our hand. Like, we can have our assumptions. We can have our thoughts of, okay, well, this is Ty's job to lose. But he's also not putting Ty in harm's way. He's not putting any of the quarterbacks in harm's way of getting them out there and having them make statements and things like that. But it's really a competition. I think that what they're trying to do offensively is trying to cultivate a system of, you got to go out there and take it. Like, you have to go out there, like, the team will let us know. We're going to have our thoughts, but also we want to see what these quarterbacks look like when they don't have the pressure of, okay, yeah, you're number one, but there's going to be a clear separation of, all right, is it Ty Simpson? Is it Austin Mack? Is it Keelan Russell? Who's going to truly take that quarterback position away and say, like, no, I'm QB1. We appreciated everybody else's efforts.
Yeah, and we talked about it last week where, I mean, and I think you're right about a lot of that stuff, but I think we talked about, the idea that, is there really a quarterback battle going on in Tuscaloosa? And I guess, again, they would say yes. All the coaches are going to tell you that yes, there is. But I think we also know that the writing's kind of on the wall that it's going to be Ty Simpson's job. At the very least, it is his job to lose if they haven't already had some conversations maybe behind closed doors of like, hey, you are going to be the guy, but maybe they just don't want to make that call. And like you said, if you throw one quarterback out there, you're going to have to throw all three of them out there to the media, right? Because if you throw just one of them out there, then it's going to draw the assumption that, oh, this is the guy. And then that's going to kind of take over the entire narrative of the rest of fall practice, right? Is that's going to be all anybody cares about. And so I do think that while, yes, you are trying to protect them, it's also, from a mental aspect, it's, hey, just go focus out there on competing and getting better every day and learning the playbook. That's what we need you to focus on. We don't need you to focus necessarily on getting in front of the media. And, I also think, some guys with, social media and things, it's made it so much easier because, I mean, think about it now. Like you can literally, I mean, you could watch a game on a Saturday and then 2 hours later you can watch, Ryan Williams after he scored a touchdown, and he'll be on, whatever, live streaming himself, hanging out with, his teammates or playing Fortnite or what, like things like that, I know a lot of people don't engage with that stuff, but it is out there for you too. And a lot of it's for the younger people, but it gives you a way of relating to these people or being able to see them in a light that, like you were saying, Damon, you never really had that before. But it is, again, it was still just kind of different with the whole media days. And, they have like, just the way that it's all set up and presented, right? Because we've gotten to hear from players, we got to hear from players a lot last year, but it's just the way of, hey, this is our media day. Like they're kind of making it into a whole event now. So it's just kind of interesting how that goes. But we do have some audio for you from a couple of the players yesterday down there in Tuscaloosa. So we'll start off with Ryan Williams, of course, the star wide receiver there, just a freshman last year for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But he speaks a little bit on handling his pressure, the pressure that's on him after having a special freshman season, and now what the expectations are for him starting his sophomore year. Yeah, so there you go. There's Ryan Williams kind of talking a little bit. He brings up Jeremiah Smith, who I think we're all very, very familiar with, since he's apparently the greatest football player of all time. I'm kidding, but no, I mean that's seems level-headed, right? That's what you want to hear from a guy like Ryan Williams, who did get a lot of attention last year. But I think he's as aware because I mean, our listeners are quick to point it out, and we've heard it more the closer you've gotten to the season. But the first half of the season last year for him and the second half of the season were completely different. And a lot of that, I think we understand, comes from the quarterback play and how that deteriorated pretty quickly down the stretch. But, Jeremy Bernard kind of became that guy, the go-to guy, the back half of the season. And while you had some moments for Ryan Williams, things like, in the Oklahoma game, right? If that catch, gets called back a touchdown, that's just another one of those highlight plays. And it kind of only further cements his legacy of what his freshman season was. But, that Georgia play, like that was a long time ago, right? And so as great as it was, as cool as it was, I think he understands more than a lot of people, what he needs to accomplish this year to actually live up to the expectations that have been put on him. So that's what you want to hear from a young guy like that. But how about some veteran guys? You got Keon Sabb, who came over from Michigan last year and was an absolute force. Multiple turnovers early in the season last year before, unfortunately, having a pretty serious injury and missing the rest of the season. So what is he saying coming back from injury, getting ready for his second season with the Tide? Yeah, so there's Keon Sabb talking about his recovery and how, having to sit out and miss a lot of time last year just kind of further cemented his love for the game, having to watch from the sidelines. How about somebody there on the defensive front? LT Overton could have gone to the NFL draft, but elects to come back for another year in Alabama. And here's LT Overton just talking a little bit about the grind of fall camp and why that's a good thing. So there you go. Alabama's fall camp practicing like they're about to play for a national championship heading into week 1 of the season. Again, I think we can go back to last year, and you heard a lot of good things. You heard a lot of the things you wanted to hear coming out of Tuscaloosa. You're hearing those things again this year. So if I understand, the idea of, well, let's kind of wait and see how this all plays out. I think I've heard this before, but at the very least, it sounds like they're gearing up, and a lot of those guys are ready and fired up. And that's one of the things that we have heard, especially about the defensive linemen, is if you want to look at the one group that maybe has been the most impressive physically and their conditioning and just obviously their stature, it would be that defensive line, and LT Overton a big part of that.
Yeah, and I think that, we brought it up at SEC Media Days, and when Kalen DeBoer was at the podium, like, it seemed more comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like they have to, like, reflecting over year 1 of Kalen DeBoer, now that we're, entering year 2, everybody feels a little bit more comfortable. Like, you kind of hear it in the players where they're taking this very business-like approach of, okay, yeah, last year happened. It happened. It is what it is. They take a responsibility for it, take accountability for it. But this year, there's like their mindset is, all right, we're rocking with Coach DeBoer. Like, they don't care what anybody else says outside of that locker room. We're bought in. Everybody's bought in. Not to say that everybody wasn't bought in last year, but it was kind of a prove it thing. It was, we've had Coach Saban for this long. Some of those, messages kind of hit a little bit different. And now in year 2, everybody kind of feels like, all right, hey, we know what happened last season. We didn't expect it. It is what it is. This is what the results were. Now in year 2, everybody kind of knows, all right, this is how Coach DeBoer is. This is how, now Ryan Grubb, his partner in crime, is down here with us. It may be a little bit different voice from Coach Sheridan, but it's the business is still the business. And I think that a lot of these guys have really locked in on that part of it of, hey, the mental side of football is needed to be just as strong as it is on the physical side. And, you see the defensive linemen, how physically mature that they're starting to get. And even Ryan Williams, you kind of look like he's put on some weight. And again, he was a 17-year-old phenom last season. Now at 18, it's okay. Well, are you going to take that next step? How does somebody that had so much promise and so much explosiveness in the first half of the season kind of dwindle down a little bit? How does he reflect on what did year 1 look like for him? And now in year 2, it's I know what to do now. I've put on the weight. Like, now it's, how do you hone into the developmental stage for a lot of these guys that are returning? And we brought up a great point yesterday in Kane Womack, and in the defensive side, you're returning a bunch of guys that showed last year, hey, once we got the defense down pat, we started to roll. It started to cook. Now doubling that for year 2, it's okay. Now I know what the expectation level is. Let's go out there and execute and do it at a high level.
Yeah, big expectations for Alabama, no doubt this year, and that's reflected in the preseason coaches poll that came out yesterday. So if you missed that, we will reveal that for you, let you know where Alabama sits, where does Auburn sit, as well as a lot of other teams around the SEC. And we do have some notes, some quick notes from Auburn's practice yesterday as well. So we'll get into all of that next on Morning Jocks. 6:20. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Conrad and Damian with you here on your Tuesday morning, getting you set for the upcoming college football season. A quick reminder, and we can talk about this a little bit later in the program as well. But we are going to be out at Social Taco today for Three Man Front. It's a very, very special day, especially for Damian. Because at 12:30 you're going to get to hear Damian and Don as they are going to duke it out on the battlefield as they debate Auburn football, and you get Don trying to convince Damian that Auburn is the greatest program in the history of college football, and Damian is going to try to dispute those facts. And then at some time after that, around 1 o'clock, I'm going to attempt to have a civil conversation with Bama Hater about Alabama and Miami football. So hopefully y'all can make it out to Social Taco today for Three Man Front. We'll be out there from 10 to 2. And Damian, I know that you are you're excited. You have a little more pep in your step this morning.
Yeah, I'm just focused.
Yeah,
Just focused.
you're locked in.
Yeah. I went and I had like a one person debate last night with myself in the mirror, just thinking of all the angles that Don would present, and I'm just trying to make sure that I'm locked and loaded, ready for those jabs. It's like a boxing match, just kind of shadow. I guess you say I was shadow debating last night, and just trying to make sure.
Why does that sound like that? Sounds really bad?
just trying to make sure that I'm mentally prepared. But I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I think the undercard of the Bama Hater versus Conrad Van Order matchup, I think it'll be pretty exciting. I woke up this morning, not to say that I was looking at some of the lines in Vegas, but I'm a heavy favorite. But you listen, I respect Don. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table, and we'll just have a very, very professional and civil debate.
I'm sure it will be nothing but professional. So yeah, that's coming up in about 6 hours. So you still got some time to cram, Damian. But no, we always have a big time up there at Social Taco for Three Man Front. So hope some of you are able to make it out there around lunchtime to come and visit with us. But did promise you some notes from Auburn fall camp, as they were actually on the practice field yesterday, while Alabama was taking the day off doing their media day festivities. But some of the standouts yesterday for Auburn. So again, we talked about this yesterday. You got to hear Hugh Freeze touch on it a little bit, but the defensive line, especially those young guys, Maurice Williams, Jared Smith, Jordan Crawford, a couple of those freshmen, really, really, really being impressive early on, just being disruptive, causing a lot of problems for the offense. And that continued on yesterday on the practice field. So that's absolutely a good thing to hear, because I think a lot of people, maybe that front seven for Auburn defensively was one of the bigger question marks on the entire team coming into fall practices. So that's good that the defensive line continues to pop a little bit there in practice. You also have the secondary, I was told, had a really, really big day. Jay Crawford was the standout there. Basically, the way that I heard it was they didn't know if any passes, any of the throws that went Jay Crawford's way, they weren't getting completed. So he was a stud yesterday out there on the practice field, but another big day for the secondary. And that kind of goes off of what we had heard from over the weekend, where, Jackson Arnold maybe not having the best day over the weekend on practice, just holding the ball a little bit too long. You had Ashton Daniels, who some reports said he had a really good day, but he did have a pick six. I know Deuce Knight has been making some really good throws as well, but all signs pointing to the quarterbacks having a little bit better day yesterday, but the secondary still looking really, really strong. And again, Jay Crawford, kind of the standout there. But yeah, Jackson Arnold, by all reports, looked better yesterday. They finally started throwing in some QB runs yesterday as well. So that kind of mixed it up for the defense as well. But apparently Jackson Arnold showing some of those wheels that, as Damian's mentioned here recently, you saw that against Alabama last year, and you saw that not often, but at times last year. He reminded everybody that he's an athlete at the end of the day, and so you got to see a little bit of that yesterday at Auburn's practice. So good for Jackson Arnold, kind of getting to show the full skill set a little bit more there. Ashton Daniels and Deuce Knight still looking pretty good, both of them splitting second team reps as it stands right now. And some other good news, though, is that Damari Alston back practicing yesterday. I don't know. I'm assuming he was still limited a little bit, but That's good to get him back because we know that he had been banged up a little bit. Jeremiah Cobb still not totally out there participating and practicing, still recovering from that finger injury, but Darrell Robinson looking good. And of course, as we mentioned, Omar Mabson continuing to be a standout and really starting to turn some heads, not only with the coaching staff, but other players kind of mentioning things to the media and passing like, hey, maybe go write that guy's name down if you haven't seen him real quick, or hey, if you got a few minutes, maybe go check out his drills because that's a dude. And that's what we told you yesterday, and that continues to be the case there for Auburn. So just a few notes from yesterday's practice. It looks like Auburn's going to get their first scrimmage underway on Friday. Alabama, I believe, is going on Saturday, so that'll be some good intel. We'll have early next week on, just kind of the first time you got to see the really, with live bullets flying, what are these guys able to look like? I know Auburn doing some work in pads yesterday, starting to work up and get acclimated there. So it's getting closer, man. This is the time where, people are really going to start to separate those position battles, maybe starting to cement themselves a little bit. But I think, again, early signs for both Alabama and Auburn seem very positive. Auburn defensively looks really, really good. I think the quarterback play maybe, just guys getting acclimated, right? Guys understanding the playbook. But maybe hearing some decision-making issues, not what you want to hear from a guy like Jackson Arnold, but all part of the learning process. So we will see how that progresses throughout fall camp. And so that is what you got from the Plains of Auburn yesterday. But we would love to hear from y'all if y'all have any thoughts on question marks, what you've heard so far from either Auburn or Alabama, things that are concerning, things you think are a positive. Maybe there's a certain player, a certain coach that's like, man, why have we not heard from this person yet? I really need to know, what their role is going to be like for this upcoming year. We will try to answer all of those questions for you. But we have someone like Lucky who chimes in this morning on the text line 205-834-9450, brought to you by Courtesy GMC. He says, good morning, guys. I'm an Alabama fan here, but I can't help but feel like Kalen DeBoer is trying to convince us, and honestly himself, that Alabama is going to be okay at quarterback. He's trying to tell us what he wants to believe rather than what he actually believes. Hashtag worried. If you don't have confidence in Ty or whoever it ultimately is, I can understand that, right? They don't have a ton of experience for you to go off of. But I don't have that big of a concern, and I don't feel like, I don't think that it's going to be a disaster at quarterback. And who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe all of the guys end up being a bust, but I don't think that. I think they have a reason to be confident in that quarterback room. But if you're, more of a wait and see and you need to see it to believe it, I can totally understand that. But just me personally, I haven't gotten the vibe that, Kalen DeBoer is trying to convince us of something that's not actually there. Let's see. Drake chimes in. He says, Damian, don't let Don bring it out of you. You got to, keep your composure.
I will.
Yeah.
When have you ever known me to blow up?
No, I know.
I'm professional.
I know. We've just got to, he might go below the belt. You just got to be ready for that kind of thing.
It's all good. Hopefully the officials there will call him out on it. I'm going into this debate very, very businesslike. Very businesslike. I've got my briefcase, get all my information that I need to present, and may the best man win.
Well, in every debate I've ever watched, the moderators just kind of get walked over. So,
well, you better tell Pat and Landrum to bring the big boy bills.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Again, we will have those debates coming up for you at 12:30 and 1 o'clock at Social Taco Live today on Three Man Front. If you want to tune in and catch all the conversation. But some more of you chiming in, some comments on fall camp. We also did have the coaches preseason top 25 unveiled yesterday. Where did Alabama, where did Auburn fall? All of that good stuff. So we want to continue to hear from you, and we'll share our reaction, our quick thoughts on the coaches poll next here on the Tuesday edition of Morning Jox.
6:33. Welcome back into Morning Jocks. Damian Mitchell alongside Conrad Van Order. How about I get y'all hooked up with the college for college football season with the Jox Kickoff Party? Celebrate the kickoff to college football with us at the Bill Smith Buick GMC Jox Kickoff Party at Regents Field on Thursday, August 21st. And the only way to go is by winning tickets. To win a pair of tickets for you and a guest, text the keyword Blazers and your full name to 205-834-9450. Again, the keyword is Blazers and your full name to 205-834-9450. Winners are drawn and notified daily. For more information, visit joxfm.com.
So if you missed it yesterday, we did have, again, the unveiling of the top 25 poll. The first, I guess you could say official top 25 poll. So next week we will have the typical AP top 25 preseason poll. That'll come out next Monday around lunchtime. But yesterday you got the coaches poll that was revealed. And so this is the USA Today coaches poll. This is the first, as I would say, official preseason poll that you have for the upcoming season. And there were a couple of things that certainly stood out to me. So we'll just start. I'll run through it real quick from 25 to 1. So starting off at number 25, you have Boise State, 24 Texas Tech, 23 BYU, 22 Iowa State. Number 21, you got Texas A&M, 20 Kansas State, 19 Indiana. 18 was Tennessee. It's a little bit interesting to me. 17 Florida, 16 SMU. Number 15 Ole Miss. Number 14 Michigan. 13 South Carolina. 12 Illinois. And 11, Arizona State. And now for your top 10, according to the coaches. At number 10, you have the Miami Hurricanes and Carson Beck. At number 9, you have LSU. At number 8, Alabama. Number 7, Oregon. Number 6, Clemson. Notre Dame's 5th. Georgia would be number 4. Penn State comes in at number 3. Ohio State at number 2. And Texas. The Texas Longhorns sit at the top there as the number 1 team in the coaches' preseason poll for the upcoming college football season. No big surprise there with Texas. I will say I'm a little surprised with Ohio State. Not that I don't think they're deserving of it. They are the defending national champions, and it is pretty cool that now you get, at least according to this poll, a 1 versus 2 matchup to start the season with Texas and Ohio State. But a lot of love going to Penn State this offseason out of the Big Ten in terms of who's going to be rated the highest. I feel like in a lot of the, different media people's, top 25s and power rankings and all that stuff, Ohio State's kind of been down there, closer to where Alabama is, really like somewhere in the 6, 7, 8 kind of a territory. And now they find themselves at number 2, according to the coaches, which I have no problem with. I mean, again, they have one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. They're going to have a great defense. They have the best wide receiver room in the country. They're going to be good at running back. They're going to be good at offensive line. And it really just comes down to Julian saying, and if you're, I feel pretty good about rolling the dice on a guy like that being able to make it work in that system. So, but a little surprised that they're all the way up there at number 2, and Penn State's right behind them at number 3. But so out of that top 25, when you first saw that, Damian, what really stood out to you in terms of, man, that team's either rated really, really high or really, really low?
My conversation starts with Clemson. I think Clemson's probably undervalued in this coaches poll right now, just with everything that they have coming back. Also, what we saw from Cade Klubnik at the quarterback position, out of everybody that's ahead of him, he's probably the most proven. You can have a conversation with Drew Aller, but I also saw Drew Aller, it wasn't because of him, I would say, that Penn State is kind of looked at as one of these teams. I look at Cade Klubnik and everything that he kind of presents himself. Like, I think Clemson's more of a top 3 team as opposed to a top 10 team. And again, you could say the ACC and kind of how they finished the season last year and how they began the season last year with the, Georgia laying absolute smackdown on them. But I just think that for Clemson, everything that they overcame last season, the battle with SMU in the ACC championship game, and they didn't have the best performance in the college football playoff against Texas. But I think that for what we expect, and again, no disrespect to Texas, and we're already telling Arch Manning, like, hey, you have the number 1 team in the nation, and you are the leader. Like, you're stepping into that kind of pressure. it's more of a wait and see. Not to say I don't think Texas is a top 5 team, but to be number 1 overall,
Yeah.
I would probably have another conversation of, to me, I would say I think Clemson is right now. If we're just saying, if you had to pick a team that should be number 1, I would actually have Clemson at the number 1 spot.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. See, I was with you. Like, I would have Clemson. I would probably have them number 3 or number 4. I think they should be a couple of spots higher. But I mean, again, number 6 is. I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs with some of these teams here. But okay, so you would have Clemson as the number 1 team. That's interesting. And I mean, I get it in terms of what they're coming. They're more of a known commodity, maybe, right? With what you have coming back, obviously at quarterback, but we know defensively with Peter Woods and guys and Parker and guys like that. You know, they maybe are a little bit more of a known commodity. And I mean, to be fair, I mean, Texas, you've got an unproven quarterback. Ohio State, unproven quarterback. Georgia, unproven quarterback. Notre Dame, Oregon, Alabama. I mean, out of the top 10, the only schools that I think you would say you feel really, really solid about what they're going to have at quarterback would be Clemson and LSU. Maybe you like Drew Aller at Penn State. But even Carson Beck at Miami, like, we know how good he can be, but, you know, what version of Carson Beck are you going to get? So it's kind of wild that, you know, you just go through the top 10 there, and it's like a lot of these teams have uncertainty at quarterback, at least in terms of, you know, we just haven't seen what that guy is going to look like. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I think Alabama at number 8. For me personally, I mean, this is what my reaction was yesterday. I like that. I think that's a good spot, right? You have a little bit of motivation, right? I'm not going to say you're being overlooked when you're the number 8 team in the country, but there's clearly teams that people view as better than you, and you have something to prove on the field once the season starts. But, you know, you're not up there with being the number 1 or number 2 team in the country where it's like, oh man, so from the get-go, you know, the assumption is we're playing for a national championship game or this season is a bust. So I know for a lot of people that's the case, but I think number 8's a pretty good spot there for Alabama. I did think Tennessee at 18. It's just Tennessee's tricky for me because I feel like a lot of people really, really don't have a lot of love for Joey Aguilar and what he could be in that offense. It seems like maybe there's more of a quarterback competition than some of us expected there to be in Knoxville as well. And again, I think what Tennessee's been able to do by, you know, shoring up their defense the last few years, shoring up their running game, they have built themselves a higher floor, I think, with the style of football that Josh Heupel wants them to play and the way that roster is constructed. But, I mean, being 18th in the country, I mean, maybe that's 8-4, but I feel like that's more of like a 9-3 kind of spot potentially. And that's, I don't know if I'm there yet on Tennessee. So that one's a little bit surprising to me personally. But you did have Florida there at 17. You have A&M at 21. Let's see, Ole Miss at 15. Ole Miss pretty high. That's higher than a lot of other places have Ole Miss. So good for Lane Kiffin. South Carolina up there 13, kind of knocking on the door of what would be the 12-team football or college football playoff field. So just kind of some interesting notes there. And for anybody that's wondering, Auburn, they did not come in at 25 or in the top 25. They would be number 32. So they were in the others receiving votes category, which, again, number 32, not a bad spot to be in. Interesting enough, number 31, Baylor. So
okay,
you can kind of see what maybe the coaches think about both of those programs there as they're both right on the edge, looking in at the top 25 poll. And then Oklahoma, they were the first team out.
26.
Yeah, they were 26. It's the first time in over 25 years that they have not been ranked in the coaches poll to start the season.
Wow. You want to talk about getting the benefit?
99, I believe.
Getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, they've had a couple rough years in there. Like, I mean, 3 years ago was pretty ugly. Last year, obviously, didn't go super well outside of a couple of games. But, yeah, first time since 1999. And Alabama at 8, that's their lowest that they've been ranked since 2008.
So it's been a while. Still top 10.
Yeah.
But just never been that low.
I was about to say, that's
yeah.
When your worst ranking in 18 years is
8.
That's not yeah, not a bad place to start, but it's obviously about where you finish and not where you start. And if Alabama loses 3 games like they did last year, they're probably not going to be finishing at number 8, and people are going to be very, very upset. And we are going to have quite an offseason here on Jox as we discuss who the Alabama fans want to replace Kalen DeBoer.
And it's kind of interesting too, because the poll kind of reflects it. the biggest question mark I have about the SEC one team is Missouri. Like Missouri won 9 games last year, and it's kind of you kind of see that nobody necessarily feels confident about Missouri, but it's also like how do you have the success that they've had in these past couple seasons and still kind of find yourself in that gray area of, okay, are you still sneaking up on people, or is Drink kind of like, no, this is the team I have. This is the team I've had these past couple seasons, and yet we're still kind of looked at as, maybe not there just yet. And he's like, what more can we do? Like, what more can Missouri do? Because I look at Texas A&M, and it's, okay, I like Mike Elko, really do. But also I saw how the end of the season finished for them. It's, okay, you had the opportunity right there in your hands. You still found a way to blow it. Whereas Missouri's like, how many more times can we be doubted? Like, it's where does Missouri fall in all of this? Because it's like, okay, well, you're not, quote unquote, good enough to be top 10, but yet you're not out of the top 20. Like, I don't know where.
They're a tricky one.
Because if Tennessee can find the benefit of the doubt with everything that they've lost and they're still a top 25 team, why doesn't Missouri get that kind of love?
And to that point, I think even with Missouri, right, their schedule, and I guess that would be for me where if, like, because I probably wouldn't have them in the top 25, and a lot of it would be, I think they can have a really good year, but it's because their schedule's not bad, and it would be more of a who did you beat along the way type of thing, right? Because you could win 9 games with your Missouri and not necessarily have like a big marquee win. And so, I mean, obviously, it looked good to have 9 wins and have the chance to go and get a 10th one in a bowl game for the 3rd year in a row. But it's kind of, I think going to be about who you beat. And to be fair for Tennessee, right? If you're getting the benefit of the doubt as a team that made the college football playoff last year, understandable. Again, Tennessee lost a lot more than Nico, and I think a lot of people just go, oh, well, I mean, they lost Nico, and that's kind of a big deal, but he really wasn't that great when you look at it. It's like, no, dude, I'm more worried about the guys they lost on the defensive side of the ball and their running back that won SEC Offensive Player of the Year. That's the stuff that I think has me more concerned about Tennessee than Nico, but we'll certainly see, and they'll have a chance to prove it and prove me wrong on the football field. But a lot of you chiming in, 205-834-9450, some of your early thoughts on the coaches' top 25 preseason poll. So we'll dive into your thoughts on that, as well as Alabama and Auburn fall camp, as we put a bow on things here on the Tuesday edition of Morning Jox. 6:50 here on your Tuesday morning. Appreciate you tuning into Morning Jox. Conrad and Damon here with you for a few more minutes before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. Getting some of your reaction to the coaches' top 25 preseason poll that came out yesterday afternoon, as well as some of your thoughts, questions on fall camps going on around the SEC. And a reminder for you is one team that we were just talking about as they are ranked 16th in the coaches poll is SMU, fresh off a playoff bid last year. Rhett Lashley, their head coach, going to be joining McElroy and Kublik in the morning coming up at 7:30, so about 40 minutes from right now. You'll get to hear Rhett Lashley, who has certainly had some things to say about the SEC this offseason, and I will be very interested to tune in and hear about what else he has to say about our fine conference that he is very familiar with, but he has certainly made it known that he's back in the ACC, and he just really doesn't think there's a lot of depth in the ACC, and it is what it is. So it'll be very interesting to see, hear some of his comments on that, as well as how he's getting his SMU Mustangs ready to go and try to repeat and make it back to the college football playoff. But we go to the Courtesy GMC text line now. As we always love to hear from you, get your text, your thoughts on everything we've discussed so far this morning. So Drake, our resident Florida fan, chimes in. He says, I'll take my Gators at 17. That's a good spot for them to be. I certainly agree with that. And especially while, I know DJ Lagway's back on the practice field, but, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. I know a lot of people early in the offseason were, Florida's, a dark horse playoff team. And I'm not saying that they can't be that team, but let's take it one step at a time, right? If you're Florida, I know last year, you felt good. You ended the game on a 4-game winning streak. Let's take it one game at a time this year.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be 10-2 college football playoff or bust, right? Because then you're just kind of setting yourself up for disappointment potentially.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable spot for Florida. I think the expectation for them, and that's the thing. Like Florida to me, and I've kind of discussed this a little bit, is like the identity of Florida now is just like they're tough. Like they are here for an absolute brawl now. And I think a lot of it has to do with what Billy Napier has built up. And we've got the talent like DJ Lagway. And again, we saw what he was as a freshman, kind of figuring it all out and playing at a high level. Now it's, okay, if he's healthy, let's see what a full year of DJ Lagway looks like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So someone's chiming in here on the text line. I don't know how debate scoring goes. I don't know if there's I don't know how that works. But somebody chimes in with their score predictions. They said Damien's going to beat Don 70-0, but I'm only going to beat Bama Hater 14-13. So I've got a close call, but you've got a blowout. But I don't know how the scoring works there. But I'm going to assume that yours is better.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't know. Do you get a point like every time you make you bring up a good point? Do you get a point? I don't know.
I don't know.
Guess we'll find out today. That's not our job. Our job is just to show up and gab. Chris chimes in, says, how big of a difference do you think Ryan Grubb will make this year for Alabama? I think he will make a very noticeable difference. And I think, maybe not necessarily with, he will help from an X's and O's, a game planning, a play calling standpoint, no doubt about it. But I think maybe the most important part of it is going to be, he's a little more of the tough love kind of guy, right? Like he's gonna get after you, he's gonna hound you and make sure that you're doing your job. And Kalen DeBoer's not necessarily that personality, and I think having that, kind of that back and forth that they can both bring, I think that's where you might see the biggest difference. Let's see. Alan chimes in. He says, if y'all need a judge, I'll be an impartial Roll Tide judge for the low price of one cold beer. Well, that'd be $1. So I think we can.
We can find a way to make it work.
We could probably make something like that happen. Let's see. CJ chimes in, says Alabama's quarterback isn't going to have the running part of the game that Milroe had last year, but the passing game will definitely be better. It surely can't be any worse.
I feel you there.
Surely it cannot be worse, right?
I will give Ty Simpson some credit. He's got
a little wiggle. We've seen it.
Sneaky athletic.
We've seen it. Let's see. Bobby chimes in. He says, pressure is definitely on Damien in this debate with Don because there's no angle anybody should be able to take defending Auburn in football and then also able to win the debate.
Oh, wow.
So pressure's on. Jason says, so Conrad thinks Tennessee is ranked too high. What a hater. Well, feel like there's fair question marks around Tennessee this year. Let's see. And Don, he chimes in. Happy Football Debate Tuesday, everybody. Let's go. Hopefully we'll see you out there at Social Taco. Damian versus Don at 12:30. Me and Bama Hater at 1 o'clock. Come out there, get some tacos, get some chicken feathers. The $1 survey says we can't wait to see you out there. We're back tomorrow at 6 a.m., but Mac and Cube in the morning, they're next.